Noon in Val di Stava wears the stillness of a postcard. Lunch steam drifts from hotel kitchens, cutlery ticks against plates, a cyclist coasts the curve by the creek and counts the seconds until dessert. Behind the spruce line, two pale embankments sit one above the other like offset bowls cut into the hillside. They are tailings dams, heaps of silt and sand from a fluorite mine, built up year after year by pushing fresh spoil onto the old. A gray pond lies quiet inside the upper bowl. Just after noon, the slope gives a warning only the hillside can hear. A muffled shift, the slow settling of a body that has forgotten how to hold itself. Fine crescents open along the crest of the upper dam. The pond rises in tight, windless ripples. At 12:22, the rim crumbles. A slab folds and slides. Water that looked calm turns feral, grabs the silt beneath, and lunges. The upper bowl empties in seconds. The lower bowl, never armored for a full blow from above, lasts only long enough to stiffen the wave. The surge that leaves the mine is not water as anyone knows it. It is slurry, heavy, quick, a gray animal that remembers every angle gravity ever taught. It gathers whatever will move: pipes, stones, trees, roof beams. Velocity makes new physics. Speed thickens into force. In 4 minutes, the wave crosses more than 4 kilometers. The first houses stand like surprised witnesses. The second rows hardly see it coming. A bridge lifts and pivots on its piers and goes away without a splash. Restaurants empty into the street. A church bell keeps ringing because someone pulls it by instinct, a sound that will lodge forever in the listener's ear as the minute when time refused to keep shape. Rescue workers climb into trucks and then watch the trucks go past without roads under them. Those who outrun the front do it with seconds to spare and shoes full of sand. Those who cannot watch their neighbors' buildings fold inward the way a book closes. The wave thins and thickens, hammers and drags, then quits where the slope finally relents. By evening, the valley sounds the way disaster sounds when it runs out of voice. Shovels, chainsaws, bearing squeal, a man's first sob when he recognizes a door handle. Helicopters thrum low, skimming the gash of gray. Volunteers arrive from towns with names that taste like mountains. They work by zones and whistles because speech cannot cross that much ruin. A rescuer in green rubber gloves moves a plank and finds a doll with its eyes clear and impossible. He sets it on the step of a house that has no door. Numbers do the cruel work of order. 268 dead, they will say at last. Entire families erased line by line. A datum takes its place beside the names. The flow weighed more than 1,000,000 tons. The front ran as fast as a city street. Deposits reached 2 stories high. A survivor describes air that could not be breathed because it was mostly dust. Another remembers seeing the color and thinking it looked like cement being poured across a town. Road to Ruins asks how a system breaks long before it fails. Start with how you build a dam meant only to hold silt. The first embankment went up by the easiest method. Upstream, stepping new walls onto older settled tailings, a technique cheap and forgiving until it isn't. Drainage was pieced together over years, patched when pipes clogged, guessed at when instruments flickered. The pond on top rose and fell with operations and weather. In hot weeks it shrank. In storms it climbed, softening the shell until it forgot its strength. Add the arithmetic of demand. Ore means jobs, and jobs mean the village breathes. Each kilogram of concentrate leaves behind many more of sand. To keep the mine alive, the bowls must keep rising. A warning letter here, a maintenance note there, the suggestion that the water table inside the pile was higher than anyone wanted to admit. None of it added up to an order to stop. Regulations were a skein of old and new threads, inspection, an occasional ritual, responsibility a set of keys that changed hands too often. The day of the collapse is not the day of the cause. Months earlier, A drain likely choked. Wet seasons pressed water into places it did not belong. The upper face crept forward in millimeters nobody measured. A final insult, a pump cycle, a misjudged transfer, a small landslip at the toe, turned creep into slide. The lower dam, built in the shadow of the first, failed in the way dependent structures fail, out of time to resist, out of room to deform. Two errors do not cancel, they multiply. The valley received the sum. Investigators followed the gray back to its sources. Reports spoke of inadequate factors of safety, piecemeal raising, piezometric levels not monitored, drains undersized or placed where slime could swallow them, an organization that trusted habit over data. Courts named names, placed fines and sentences, and drew a border between misfortune and negligence. Every ruling felt both necessary and late. The dead had already done their part of the paperwork. The village did what villages do. It buried, marked, cooked, repaired. It learned to distinguish grief from guilt, so neighbors could ask for borrowed tools without looking at their boots. A memorial rose by the road, a field of names in bronze guarded by larch. School kids learned new words, tailings, slurry. Older men carried in their pockets smooth gray pebbles they found months later in pastures far from the channel. Talismans of the distance a mistake can travel. If the story stayed here, it would be weather. But most of the world's dams are not built for water. They are built for waste, and many sit above towns that cannot pronounce the word geotechnical. The Stava wave rolled into global files. Engineers flew in, walked the deposits with notebooks open, and went home to argue for drainage you can inspect, for monitors that never sleep, for buttresses and beach widths, and freeboards sized for storms you have not met yet. Some boards listened, some budgets mistook prudence for cost. Road to Ruins is not satisfied with red lines on blueprints. It asks who has the right to say stop when the paycheck says go. It asks why a drain's hum is easier to ignore than a tourist's complaint about dust on a balcony. It asks what public memory is for if not to change the next meeting's agenda. In the years since the collapse, laws stiffened, agencies grew teeth, and a new habit took root. The habit of borrowing fear from the worst day and using it as design load. Yet every few years another valley forgets. Walk the length of Stava now, and the creek runs clear over stones, the color of iced tea where it braids around the footings of replanted bridges. Meadows remember their shape. Houses stand with new lintels that know why they are thick. On a summer noon you can still hear knives on plates, children sifting gravel for the pleasure of sifting, a bicycle ringing to pass. Look uphill. The scars wear grass and a fence line. The bowls up there are flatter, seeded, sentenced to harmlessness by engineering done right. What failed in 1985 was not only a wall of earth, it was the belief that slow things are safe things. A dam that grows a meter a year can feel like part of the mountain until one noon reminds you it is a machine that rewards attention and punishes sleep. The people of Stava paid the price for every cheap assumption. The rest of us owe them a better reflex, to ask what sits above us, who counts its water, and whether the person with the keys knows that the valley is not an acceptable spillway. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.